Going on, guys? Today is August 26th, 2025. Back today with another awesome workshop. Today we're going to be talking about incorporating live instruments into your production, specifically, as a music producer, how you can do this. This is something that I've been doing now for about a year and a half at this point, kind of behind the scenes, working with different collaborators, and just trying to work with more individuals that actually play real instruments. Because I've always been sample-based pretty much across the board for the last 9 years. I definitely want to eventually get into learning something. I was thinking, maybe learning guitar again would be cool. That was something I did when I was younger, didn't really stick with it. But, for the most part, everything I've done that has been, incorporating live music, it's been in collaboration with other people. But today we're going to talk about, not just collaborating, but being able to learn things on your own. And if you already play an instrument, how can you add this into your production? Let's say maybe you started out doing piano or saxophone, and then you learned how to produce music. How can you incorporate both? And to me, the people that could do both, you're a superhero in my eyes, because I don't know how people can learn to do all those things. It's very impressive, and the people that do it very well really has always impressed me too. So we have a few articles. The one we're going to be going over today is called How to Add Live Instruments to Your Music Production, and it's from Medium. The other couple articles, you'll be able to find those in the description of the video, and I'll get to those at the end, but we'll go through this one. This one's kind of a simple read, nothing too crazy. But I think it covers, kind of the main points of what I want to go for today. So this one is it's written by, username is KMC Creates, and this was written in September of last year, so it's about a year old. It says, adding live instruments to your music production can bring a fresh and organic feel to your tracks. If you play instruments or hire someone to play, I suggest it, as it will really add life to your musical creations. Here is a step-by-step guide to integrating live instruments into your production. Step number 1, plan your arrangement. Identify the needs. Determine which instruments will complement your existing track and where they should be added. For example, you might want to add a live guitar riff to add depth, or a real piano for an emotional touch. Compose and arrange. Plan how the live instruments will fit into your arrangement. Decide on parts for solos, riffs, or backing harmonies. Early on, when I was working on a lot of albums for J Trey, my artist who I started out with, we wanted to get some different people involved, and I remember his one album called Epitome of Chaos. It had a song on it that I ended up working with a pianist on, whose name is Zach Wilson. Definitely check him out. He's a jazz pianist. He's, in my eyes, he's like the young Robert Glasper, because he does it all, and he works in a lot of different genres, not just jazz, but hip-hop, R&B, things like that. But anyways, me and Zach worked, I think in 2019 originally, and I had him kind of add his flavor to a few different productions of mine. And I remember I had this song sitting around for a little bit, and I ended up redoing the entire beat around the song that Jay put together. So I took the old beat that I did off, I took his keys because it fit the same tempo, and I ended up adding them onto the brand new production. And it's actually a song called, damn it, I forget the name of it. See, it's been so long. It's a song on J Trey's album called Epitome of Chaos, though. And I think it was the outro, because it was a 2-part song. Can't think of the name right now, but it was made for the second half of the record. But that's pretty much what I did, because I knew I wanted, some sort of live instrumentation on it. And as opposed to trying to put something together myself, I was like, I already have this song. Let me just add it to this particular part, and it worked out perfectly. And it's arguably one of my favorite records on there, even though I can't remember the name. Again, I apologize. But look up J Trey, Epitome of Chaos, and whatever the outro is, that's the one that I'm thinking of. Number 2, set up your recording space. Choose a location, select a recording space with good acoustics for professional results. A well-treated room or a studio is ideal. Microphones and equipment. Use high-quality microphones suited for the instrument you are recording. Ensure you have a good audio interface and preamps if needed. Prepare the environment. Minimize background noise and ensure your recording environment is conducive to capturing high-quality sound. You always hear, obviously, if you're a vocalist, the importance of treated rooms. That can be a very big thing. Not everybody can afford to do that. So if you can't afford to do that, just do your best. Just make use of what you have. And sometimes even doing it rough, with some background noise in there, can add even a different type of element, more of like an acoustic atmosphere that feels more real, and people can incorporate that how they will. But if you want something super crisp and super, studio-esque, I guess, you would want to make sure that, everything is relatively treated and that you are using a pretty good microphone, something high quality to capture all the tones of the instrument, whatever it might be. If you're trying to record like woodwind, for example, you want to get the midtones because there's not a lot of bass in a woodwind instrument. You're looking for the highs and the midtones. So you want something that kind of captures that sort of thing. If you're going for brass elements, they have they're a little bit more bottom heavy. So you want, probably the muddy, the mid to low tones. And just you know what you're doing. Especially if you're a producer, you kind of understand how that stuff works and how sounds kind of clash with each other too. So just keep all that in mind. But do your best. If you can't have it fully treated or be in a great environment for recording, just do your best. And I think the best thing is when you're collaborating, a lot of the times, I'm getting sent stuff through the email and they're recording their parts in a studio, in their own studio. So they already have it treated to begin with. So you might not have to deal with that. I think it's more of when you're doing it on your own, or if you're doing it, having someone else come into your space to record, just keep those things in mind. Recording the instruments. Mic placement. Experiment with microphone placement to get the best sound. For example, with a guitar, you might mic both the amp and the room for a fuller sound. Perform and record. Record the performance in sections as a whole, depending on the complexity of the part and the skill of the musician. Track layers. Record multiple takes if needed to capture the best performance, or to have options for layering. So that's just like doing, like I said, vocal takes. It's the same thing, have that person maybe freestyle a little bit. I always tell anyone that plays any type of instrument that I'm working with, I tell them just freestyle. Like, we can use the whole thing, or we'll just chop it up and we'll use parts of it and move it around. I think that's better than telling people, to play it a certain way or very precisely, like you got to play it at this time signature. I've always just seen it as, let's have you freestyle, do your thing. I trust your vision. You're the master of this instrument. So you play what you feel is best, and then we'll go from there. We'll decide if we want to keep everything or if we just want to keep parts of it. But they're going to give you something great. So most of the time I end up using the majority of what they give me anyway. But that's a good example. And then, like it says, trying out different placements of the microphones. You might not have a ton of microphones. You might only have one. So even if you have one, I would try moving it. I would start, maybe do something up close and then say, okay, we want something that feels like we're kind of maybe in the audience somewhere. So I'm going to, go in the hallway here, keep the door open, set it up there, and then you play it from the room so we can hear what that sounds like. Just get creative with it, just like you would with anything else is a huge thing. Editing and trimming. Align and clear up the recorded tracks. Use your DAW's editing tools to correct any timing or pitch issues. which again, that's, the best part of doing this in the DAW is you then have the ability to kind of manipulate it however you want, which is nice. Processing. Apply EQ, compression, and other effects to fit the live instruments into your mix. This might involve equalizing frequencies, adjusting dynamics, and adding effects like reverb or delay. Turning. If necessary, use pitch correction tools to fine-tune any slightly off-pitch notes, but be careful not to overdo it. And if you don't know what key it is, use tools. There's online tools like TuneBat is what I use. If I don't know the key of a song, I go to TuneBat, I plug it in, it tells me the key, the tempo, all that stuff. Do that with just a solo instrument, and then maybe do it with the song you're working in too, and see if they compare. And then from there, you'll know, okay, I need to change it to this pitch to match the song, or vice versa, whatever that might be. Number 5 is mixing. Balance levels, adjust the levels of the live instruments relative to the other elements in your mix. Pan and space. Use panning and stereo imaging to place the live instruments in the mix, creating a sense of space and depth. Blend. Ensure the live instruments blend well with the electronic elements of your track. This might involve additional processing or effects to match the sound. I always look at being able to not overdo something is a big thing in production. So I think it's no different with live instruments, especially since the dynamics are a lot different than samples. You want to make sure that they still blend well and that you're not overdoing it still. So that's another huge part of it. And again, I think that just comes with knowledge of sound selection, which is a huge part because not everybody has great sound selection. I, for one, when I started out, terrible sound selection. Like I was picking things that didn't even go with one another, and I was putting way too much in a track. So I still think keeping it simple is key and not overdoing it. Just keep that in mind. Feedback and revisions. Give feedback, play your track for others, and give feedback on how the live instruments fit within the overall mix. Make adjustments based on the feedback. Make any necessary adjustments to improve the integration of the instruments. It's just like anything else. Feedback can definitely help. Take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, you should still do what you want to do. I almost feel like a good thing to do in this instance is have a version with the instrument in there and then have the version without it. And then maybe do your own comparison, but also ask people for their opinion and see what they say. That might help you a lot in this scenario because they will compare and contrast pretty differently. And I think you'll get a better idea of which one you should probably lean towards over the other one. Number 7 is finalizing. Automation. Use automation to adjust levels and effects dynamically throughout the track. Mastering. Once you're satisfied with the mix, proceed with mastering to ensure the tracks sound polished and professional. Obviously, this is just normal song stuff. Do this with anything. Finally, additional tips. Collaborate. Work with experienced musicians and engineers if possible, as their expertise can significantly enhance the quality of your recordings. Experiment. Don't be afraid to experiment with unconventional mic placements or recording techniques to capture unique sounds. And practice. Ensure the musicians are well rehearsed to get the best possible performance. And it says, in closing, integrating live instruments into your production can elevate your music by adding depth and authenticity. Enjoy the process and let your creativity guide you. So that is pretty much the main points of why it's important, or why it can be important to add live instrumentation into your work. Like I said, I've collaborated with a lot of cool people. Another individual I've collaborated with recently, his name is Strappa. He plays saxophone. We've done like 4 or 5 songs together already, and we've been able to put out some of those songs. We still have some songs coming out, but I was really trying to gravitate towards the saxophone specifically because I think it's an amazing instrument, and I just love the tone of it. I love the dynamics of it. And he is someone that is really good at it. And I was like, yeah, I feel like we could kind of mesh the sounds pretty well. And so far, it's been really cool to be able to work with him. And hopefully we can do more. But yeah, I think it's just about finding, if you're going to collaborate, find the people that you obviously mesh with, vibe with, just like any other collaboration, but just make sure they're the right fit for the track or whatever you're trying to make. If you're doing it on your own though, like I said, you're a superhero, so keep it up because I think you're incredible. Like I said, I don't even know how to play instruments of any kind. I've always done it sample based. I've always just done it by ear for the most part. So people that can do both, like you're unstoppable. Like you can do whatever you want. And even then, like you could even continue collaborating with other musicians too and make some pretty high quality stuff. So that's pretty much it. The other two articles, which will be in the description, are one is by JBZ Beats. It's called How to Incorporate Live Instruments into Hip Hop Production. And the other one is by Point Blank called 5 Reasons Why You Should Be Sampling Live Instruments. Which both of those are, they have similarities to the other article, but they also have some different interesting points too. So definitely check those out. But as always, I appreciate you guys watching this one. Hopefully you can start making some really cool tracks with live instrumentation. And if you've been doing this already, drop your song in the comments. Like, what is the most recent song that you've done that you've incorporated live musicians in or played any type of instrument on? Let me know in the comments. Would love to hear some of your guys' stuff. But next week on September 2nd, we're going to be talking about seeking second opinions, being able to get opinions from a good amount of people or one person, and then eventually getting another opinion down the line from someone else, and just collecting perspectives and being able to apply that to your decision making when it comes to releasing music. Definitely going to be a cool topic, definitely a different one, but I'm excited for that as always. And once again, thank you guys for tapping in. A lot of cool stuff coming up in the last few months here of the year. But I hope you guys were able to learn something from this. And we will see you next week on September 2nd. As always, stay safe, stay positive, and we'll see you next time, guys.